is news. In a previous video, I suggested that legacy media is brainwashing. If you're of a certain age or disposition, you have the idea imprinted upon you that the legacy media news is presenting you information that you should believe or at least should prioritize as important. Legacy media has been crafted by marketing experts and psychologists to have a feel of ultimate legitimacy. Nobody is capable of watching it passively and not be subject to the propaganda aspects of it. Now, if you're watching it actively to basically pull things out or search for sources or other things like that, you might be able to avoid this. However, most people aren't going to be doing that. So if legacy media is not reliable, what is? Well, I'm saying X is. Now, if you're not on it, you're probably not on to it due to all the bad things you've heard about it. And who's been telling you all these bad things about X? Well, legacy media. So, what's good about X? Well, first, breaking news is transmitted much faster than legacy media. A lot of times, media is reacting to what they're seeing on X. Often, this breaking news is at least as accurate as legacy media, and frequently it's more accurate. When anybody, legacy or new media, present X information, they are often quickly challenged. So you don't just, like the legacy media on TV, just puts up what they say, and if you don't like it, you just kind of go, oh, well, I don't know why I don't like it. If you're on X, you're going to immediately see people saying, where's this coming from? Where are you coming up with this? How do we know this is real? I see a flaw in your argument. And then maybe the person who said, I saw a flaw in your argument, has somebody else come up and say, well, no, wait a minute, you're wrong on that. It means, your argument is actually flawed because you're not seeing it right. You get quick interaction. Fabricated news events are often debunked very quickly, often in real time. There is actually a true diversity of opinion on X. X can act as a news aggregator to bring you information on your favorite topics. The algorithm that brings you posts is weighted towards what you want to see, with far less suppression and censorship than places like Facebook. So, why all the negative hype around X? Well, before Musk bought it, it was essentially the cool kids club for select journalists. People were given blue checks in their avatars indicating that they were a select group of people. Musk changed this to a cheap subscription instead. So for like $1 a month, you get a blue check. So this got a lot of journalists mad, and so they've kind of been hating on it ever since. Also, a lot of people aren't used to dealing with choice and information of different grades. So people who aren't used to this tend to dislike a system that doesn't spoon feed them information from certified sources. So what's good about this? Well, a good example would be the Trump assassination attempt. It popped up real time. I was actually just checking the news when it was happening and found out about it as it was happening. Now, at the same time that X was showing exactly what was happening, I mean, the videos were being posted, people were commenting, we're getting numerous different viewpoints on it. Legacy media was suggesting that Trump was frightened by a loud noise. At the same time, legacy media was struggling to figure out what was going on. I watched Trump get up from behind the podium with blood on his head. Kind of hard to beat X on something like that. Now, things like the post-assassination analysis brought out some questionable assessments, but at the same time, many legitimate questions about security were raised, and these were raised first on X, and then they percolated back to the legacy media and eventually to the government, where the government attempted to answer to the shortcomings. On X, you're going to see interviews with people who would never get time elsewhere. If you believe in free speech, even the worst people in the world should at least get their side heard because you may not fully understand what's going on. Other things I like to see on X are space launch news and science news. Now, if you pick your sources carefully, you can get a better understanding on things like Ukraine or the Middle East conflicts, or really much better than anything legacy media is going to tell you because you're getting it from a dozen different sources. Now, a good example is I got sucked in a bit on a false story that was suggesting Tim Waltz probably had some, I don't know, 4'2" skeletons in his closet, if you know what I mean. The poster had sources, and the story sounded really bad. However, a lot of big names on X did some quick work to find flaws in the story, and eventually the poster was forced to retract. I think what I like about the best about X is that it forces me to do critical thinking. Not everything you're seeing is true. And some of the bad will get debunked by people explaining the flaws. Watching other people's critical thinking skills helps you with yours. Some things merely stay conflicted. On anything you want, you can choose to read or watch either passively or you can participate. Now, a good analogy would be to think of X as like being a buffet style restaurant. On one end, there's the chocolate fountain and the ready-made cakes and cookies. Intermixed in the middle are the vegetables and fruit and some deep fried nasties. And on the far end is shrimp scampi and steaks, maybe some breaded chicken tenders around. You could eat healthy and come well in under your calorie count for the day, if you choose to. In fact, you could eat at a buffet style restaurant and eat a healthy lifestyle there. You can also choose to overeat or consume chocolate syrup until you're sick. The point being is the choice is entirely yours. Now, talking about some general concepts that you would have to understand getting into X is essentially there's two primary feeds. There's a section called For You and another one called Following. Now, For You is essentially the algorithm going, okay, I'm looking at all of X and I think I'm seeing things you like. Now, and then the other side is Following, which is all the people you've actually followed. And it presents it in a timeline, post for post, going down. The For You section is kind of like Pabst beer in a beer bong. And you're just going to get a giant wash of everything, and nothing's going to be all that particularly tasty. Whereas Following is more like a crafted microbrew. Now, you get to pick who you follow. So you get to set up what your following section looks like. You could choose to make it an echo chamber, either overtly or without thinking it through. Or you could balance it out. As long as you know you've created an echo chamber, because you might want to just go, hey, I don't want to be out in the flow of nastiness out on the For You section. I want to just kind of insulate myself for the day and hear stuff that's more along my line of thinking or from sources I trust. So you set up your follow section the way you want it. Either it can be a comfort zone or it could be a challenging comfort zone that you understand. So, in other words, you can choose trusted sources versus being on blast. Some of the other things to beware of is something called engagement farming. There are some really gigantic channels out there that all they do is post stuff that's garbage that is trying to entice you to interact with them. So somebody who doesn't care in any way whatsoever about the current like political debate might be just posting, hey, communism's great. We all know that, right? Forcing you to go, hey, wait a minute, here's wrong with wrong. And all that, they don't care. They're never going to look at what you're saying. All they're trying to do is get people to post on there. And, sometimes it's good if you just want to practice your writing skills, etc., etc. But you're kind of wasting your time. And eventually you learn to know who's doing engagement farming, and you know when to ignore it and when to engage it. Another thing you have to watch for is if you're doping the algorithm. Uh, so one good example is when I first started on X, I ended up kind of getting into these engagement farmers without fully realizing them. Most of them are left leaning, so I was basically going, kind of like going, aha, you have posted a stupid argument deliberately, which I didn't realize. And then I'd go in there and tear it apart and go, haha, look how smart I am. And if you do that enough, what happens is the algorithm says, oh, he really likes talking to stupid people on the left. I'll give him more of it. Uh, Now, the nice thing is if you inadvertently dope the algorithm the wrong way, you can dope it back to more of the where you want it to over and just basically by controlling yourself for one day and just picking things that are sane sources. And another thing is building trust in your sources. When you pick a source, learn to understand what they're good at and what they're not. And you might choose along the line where you're somebody who thought, oh, wow, this guy's really interesting. You may go, yeah, actually, this guy's more negativity than I really want. I don't want that in my information feed. We'll just toss him out and we'll look at him if we want to look at the broad feed, fine, but not in my following section. And the nice thing is in X, nobody expects you to engage anyone. You could be passive your entire time. You can only choose to jump in on certain things that you consider you're an expert on or things that you're passionate about. One thing I do notice is, like, for instance, no one really dings you for spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes because it's really easy when you're typing on the fly to like put a word in that's spelled correctly but isn't quite the right word using a homonym or something like that. And I've never been dinged by someone saying that. In fact, I've gotten posts that were really well liked that had typos in them. And on the flip side, yeah, if you say something kind of stupid, people are going to pick it apart. You just have to be ready for that, whether you're going to just say, oh, yeah, I didn't really think that through. Thanks for pointing it out to me. Or you could just ignore it and it'll go away. I mean, it's not like someone's going to follow you around forever uh, with these posts. It's not as annoying as the way Facebook is set up. So I will talk in a future video about some of the people I follow so you can get an idea how to populate things, but I just wanted to put this out there. How many of you are currently on X? What do you think of it? Have you been avoiding X for the same reasons that I'm pointing out in here? Also, something important I probably should mention too. You do have to kind of figure out how to limit yourself on X because X is a kind of a bottomless hole. You could literally spend your entire day on it, and that would probably be a waste of your day. Um, if you spent a few like a time period that you want to gather information on, like for a half hour or something, or maybe a 15-minute morning session, a 15-minute evening session, that would probably be great. But do beware, it can be a time sink. Anyways, comments below. Are you using it? If you're not, why not? And if you didn't like it in the past, it's probably a lot different than what you were used to back then. Please smash the like button. If you've come here and you haven't subscribed to my channel and you check out my other titles. I get into a lot of different things. You probably find things that interest you. Subscribe. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.